Sean imprisoned me by his side and tortured me as a form of revenge, allowing him to take whatever he wanted from me. It wasn't until he was about to get married that I expressed a bit of my dissatisfaction. Sean, I will never be a mistress. Even if it means death. He didn't even lift his eyes. And his voice was incredibly cold. Then go die. As it turned out, his words came true. After I died, I was reborn and returned to the time before everything began. He knelt in front of me with a cold gaze. I forgave him and apologized. I'm sorry, Sean. Goodbye, Sean. Let's never be entangled again. But his eyes changed. At night, I had already fallen asleep, but I was woken up by someone. A cool breath swept over all my senses. I hung limply on the man, letting him take what he wanted. However, halfway through, I finally became a bit more conscious. The images shown on the TV today suddenly flashed through my mind. Congratulations to the top actress Cindy and the emerging technology entrepreneur, President Sean, for ending their 10-year love journey. The rehearsal footage of the childhood sweethearts' wedding of the century has been leaked. Everyone was offering their blessings. Just as the program was about to end, a reporter who seemed to come out of nowhere asked, "There's a rumor that President Sean has a mistress hidden in a luxurious house in Bai Jawi. Is this true?" And it said that Cindy is the one who intervened in the relationship. Could you please comment on this? Upon hearing the words, intervened in the relationship, Cindy's face turned pale. She instinctively grabbed the corner of Sean's clothes and hid behind him. Sean pushed his rimless glasses and his eyes were extremely cold. That's nonsense. Cindy and I have known each other since we were 5. Even if there's a third party, it should be someone else. Did that mean I was the mistress? Realizing this, my heart suddenly ached. In the 3 years since I went bankrupt, Sean had broken my wings, shattered my backbone. It was like boiling a frog in warm water. And he gradually nibbled away at my pride. I became a caged canary who could do nothing but be at his disposal. Having had my fighting spirit worn down, I could accept almost anything now. But being a mistress was something I absolutely couldn't tolerate. Because my mother chose to commit suicide by jumping off a building because of my father's infidelity. This was a lifelong taboo for me. So, even though my body was extremely weak, I still showed a bit of backbone. Sean, I will never be a mistress. Even if it costs me my life. He was gently nibbling at my collarbone. When he heard my words, his movements paused for a moment. But he didn't even lift his eyes. And his voice was terribly cold. Then go die. What an odious man. In the middle of the night, the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I was so angry that I wanted to run away. So, while he was taking a shower, I ran out in my nightgown. I didn't even put on my shoes. The maid looked at me in shock. "Madam? Where are you going?" I ignored her. I also ignored everyone who tried to stop me. After leaving the villa, I ran wildly on this sparsely populated island. The salty sea breeze blew against my face, making me feel the long-lost freedom. "Suki." When Sean's voice sounded behind me, I wasn't paying attention and stepped on a stone under my foot. I fell heavily and it hurt so much. My knee instantly scraped and it was really painful. And the person who had been chasing me just now also slowed down. Meticulous and methodical. As if nothing could stir his emotions. Everything was under his control. His black metal glasses glinted coldly in the moonlight. "Leave me? Are you sure? A person who is vulgar, has low morals, and has almost zero ability to make money. You want to leave me? Are you sure? What right do you have?" His words suddenly choked. His brows furrowed. I wiped away the tears that had fallen. To be honest, having been numb for so long, I hadn't cried for a long time. I know I was wrong. Sean. If I could be reborn, I wouldn't pester you anymore. He curled the corners of his mouth. And his eyes were full of mockery. Too bad. The heavens won't give you a chance to start over. You should understand the principle that you have to pay for what you've done. Right? I understand. But I should be able to choose how to make amends. Right? I looked at the villa behind him. I don't want it anymore. I don't want anything. I don't want the bags. I don't want the money. I don't want anything. I want to leave you. Yes, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. I wanted to leave him. I got up and continued running out despite the pain. Suki. Stop. Screech. The sound of the car's brakes rang out in the night sky. There was a strong pushing force on my back, and a metallic taste of blood welled up in my chest. My internal organs were probably broken. Under the intense white light of the car, I closed my eyes. When I opened my eyes again, the pain in my body was gone. But in my hand, I was holding an iron dog collar. You can't treat him like this. He's Sean. Noble. A favored son of Heave. Once fallen. Kneeling in front of me. He exposed his fair neck and waited for me to put the collar on him. But when he looked up at me, his eyes were full of coldness. Sean. Let's go. There will be other ways to raise the money. Cindy's cries were still ringing in my ears. But I was increasingly unable to make out what she was saying. My heart just started pounding. At this moment, many images suddenly flashed through my mind. It was as if the gears of fate were turning again. Slap. The collar fell from my hand. I squatted down. If this wasn't a dream. I took out the card from my bag and handed it to Sean. I'm sorry. Here's the money. You can just pay me back when you have the money. His originally cold eyes suddenly became filled with confusion. But he still took the card. The moment he took it, I couldn't hold back my tears. Like a drowning person grabbing a life preserver, I covered my face and cried bitterly. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Goodbye, Sean. Let's never be entangled again. After that day, I fell seriously ill. I had a fever for several days and nights. When I woke up again, I finally believed that I had truly been reborn and returned to 8 years ago. I was even wondering whether everything in my previous life was real or false. But there was no denying that, in this life, I must stay away from Sean. After the spring came to Jing City. People seemed to be more energetic. Pay back the money or die. As I passed by the school alley, there came the sound of a fight. I took a quick look. The one being beaten was actually Sean. His face was covered in blood. And the white coat on his body was also trampled all over with footprints. Lying on the ground, he still had a cold expression on his face. The leader of the gangsters felt provoked when he saw that Sean still looked indifferent in such a state. He took out a knife from his bag. My heart skipped a beat. Stop. I didn't dare to step forward. But I held my phone in my hand. I've already called the police. Hurry up and get out of here. Those people probably also realized that they had almost gone too far. When they heard that I had called the police, they ran away in a hurry. The crosswind in the alley whistled in my ears. The plastic bags next to the trash can were blown over and rolled on the ground several times, making a rustling sound. Sean leaned against the wall behind him and tried to get up with great effort. But he immediately fell down again. His eyes were closed, as if he had fallen asleep. I stepped forward and touched his forehead. It was burning hot. Looking at his embarrassed appearance and the blood stains oozing from the corner of his mouth, I felt a bit sad and also resentful. I stroked his face. See, had out a low sigh. I didn't do everything wrong. I clearly paid off your debt and prevented you from getting beaten up. The more I said, the more aggrieved I felt. My nose even felt a bit sour. I didn't know you liked Cindy. You two lived together and she called you brother. I thought you two were relatives. How can you blame it all on me? You're really being unreasonable. Sean. Tears blurred my vision. A bodyguard came over. Miss. What are your orders? I took my hand away from Sean's face, wiped my tears, and stood up. Take him to the hospital. I looked down at my phone. The time was running out, and I had to hurry to sign up. I left in such a hurry that I didn't notice that the person behind me, who had originally closed his eyes, opened them. His dark gray pupils were extremely deep. Fortunately, I managed to catch the registration at the last moment. Vulgar and low class. I looked at the registration form for the dance competition in my hand, and the words Sean had said flashed through my mind. There was no denying that his words had caused me a great deal of harm. I had originally planned to transfer to a school abroad, fearing that staying in the country would lead to more trouble. But seeing this competition, I decided to stay and participate in it before leaving. I just wanted to prove myself. Suki, am not a useless person who can't achieve anything. When I started practicing dancing again, my body wasn't unfamiliar with it. After all, this was my body from 8 years ago. But my memories were already blurred. So, it took me a whole week of practice to gradually find my own rhythm again. In my previous life, in order to pursue Sean, I spent a lot of energy on him. Naturally, he didn't know that in fact, I could dance much better than his first love. On the weekend, after coming out of the dance studio, I went to the mall. I hadn't experienced the freedom of going to the specialty stores to choose my favorite clothes and bags for a long time. During the years when I was kept by Sean, these things were directly delivered to my home. When I took a dress with a nice cut into the fitting room to change, suddenly, I heard a commotion of running and screaming outside. Before I could admire the new clothes, I opened the door. Puff. A thick cloud of smoke rushed towards me. Oh no. I suddenly remembered a piece of social news. Gowland Mall caught fire due to aging electrical wires, resulting in multiple deaths and injuries. And the economic loss was as high as it seemed to be this fire. I quickly ran outside. Because there were a lot of clothes. The fire quickly spread to the floor where I was. Many lights had already gone out. Gray smoke billowed, making it impossible for me to see where the exit was. I was knocked down by someone running from behind. After falling, I simply didn't have the strength to get up again. I had inhaled too much smoke, and I was almost out of breath. I kept coughing. A sense of powerlessness welled up in my heart. Could this be the consequence of defying fate? No. I wasn't willing to accept this. I had with great difficulty been given a second chance at life. I propped myself up on the ground and tried my best to stand up. In my ears were the sounds of various glass shattering and the explosions of the electrical wires. Just as I was about to fall again, a big hand grabbed mine and pulled me up. He picked me up in his arms. Sean? His brows were furrowed, and his lips were extremely pale. Why are you here? He didn't answer me. He just kept running towards the exit. Just as we were about to get out, a huge lighting strip fell down and hit his back. The intense impact caused him to fall, and I rolled aside as well. And at this moment, another crossbeam also fell down and happened to hit his leg. Ugh! He let out a muffled groan of pain. I crawled over Sean. His eyes were tightly closed, and he looked extremely painful. Sean. I was so anxious that I was about to cry. I tried to lift the crossbeam pressing on his leg, but I couldn't move it at all. Leave me alone. You go quickly. He woke up. I ignored him and still tried my best to lift it. While lifting, I kept shouting. Help! Is there anyone there? Please. Can someone come and save us? Help, please. Is there anyone? Help! Tears couldn't stop streaming down. Suki. I told you to go. I'm not leaving. Shut up. Just as I was about to pass out from inhaling too much smoke, a group of people dressed in firefighter uniforms came in. Come quickly. There are 2 people alive here. I was taken to the ambulance. The sound of the ambulance siren circled in my ears. In a daze, I seemed to see Sean holding my body, and the blood blended him and me together. The surging waves crashed against the shore, making a howling sound. He was bending down to kiss my lips. The white flowers swayed in the wind. When I woke up again, my father Leon was sitting beside me. How do you feel? Cough. 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 I coughed several times in a row. My throat was so dry and hoarse that it was in a terrible state. Sean. Where is Sean? Where is he? Leon put down the newspaper in his hand. You mean the boy who was brought to the hospital with you? He just got out of danger. He has a large area of burns on his back. And his leg was also broken. It is estimated that it will take half a year for him to recover. Is he that badly injured? I immediately prepared to get out of bed to see him. Suki. I've checked. That boy's family is ruined. And all the family property has been occupied by relatives. Now he is living in the nanny's house. Such a person is not worthy of you. I was stunned. No one has said that he is not worthy of me for a long time. In my previous life, I loved him passionately, and my possessiveness towards him was extremely strong. When he just reached the legal age, I dragged him to get the marriage certificate. Leon didn't agree at all. But I hated him because of my mother's matter and didn't care about his opinion. He couldn't persuade me. So he took Sean to work in the Suki family. Later, Sean annexed all the property of my family and sent my father to prison. You're right. He's not worthy of me. I went back to the bed. I shrank into the quilt. I want to rest now. I issued an order to send him away. His figure moved a bit. Ryan is back. If you have any needs, you can call him. I opened my eyes under the quilt. Brother Ryan is back? I felt a burst of joy in my heart. I opened my phone and found Ryan's contact avatar. Brother Ryan. Have you come back to Jing City? Yeah, Ellie. That's right. But I'm busy recently. I'll come to see you when I'm done. Okay. Brother Sean. You know that I've been preparing for this dance competition for a long time. This is related to whether I can get into the city's dance troupe, so I don't have time to take care of you. I'm sorry. As soon as I got to the door of Sean's ward, I heard Cindy's voice. Just then, let out a low sigh. The nurse came in and said to Cindy, "Are you the patient's family member? Hurry up and go to the front desk to pay the medical expenses." I don't have any money. You know. Brother Sean. All the money was used to treat my mother's illness. There's no money left. I curled the corners of my mouth in mockery. Childhood sweethearts are just like this. I thought they would have a relationship stronger than gold. I gave Errol, who was following behind me, a look. He understood immediately and nodded at me. And he walked into the ward. Our young lady will pay the medical expenses. Then come with me. After saying that, the little nurse took Errol out. It left Cindy, whose face was so embarrassed that it turned completely red, and Sean, who was reading a book in the hospital bed. After I walked in, Cindy was first startled, and then she left in a hurry, making up a random excuse. Are you sad? Your sweetheart left when you needed her the most? Yes. Although I don't want to have anything to do with Sean. But I really hate him. I can't help but want to speak sarcastically to him. I have thought about whether to take revenge on him in this life. But he is like a poisonous snake. If I get entangled with him, I will either die or be seriously injured. Plus, I'm actually not very smart. I can't outwit him at all. If he were in a palace intrigue drama and played the role of an eunuch, he might even be able to hold great power and become the emperor. If I were in a palace intrigue drama, I would be beheaded on the first day for offending the imperial Comte. He put down the book in his hand. He looked at me with a faint gaze. He didn't answer me. It was so quiet in the ward that only the chirping of birds on the trees outside could be heard. I suddenly felt bored. When I turned around and wanted to leave, he called out to me. Suki, I want to go to the toilet. I turned around. How boundary conscious is Sean? After we got married, he wanted to sleep in a separate room from me. I agreed, but at night, I used the spare key to open his room. I got into his quilt. I hugged his waist. Like a pervert, I greedily inhaled the faint scent of a Garwood body wash on him. His breathing became heavier, and I could feel that he was angry. But because of my power and influence, he had to hug me back. So the moment the Suki family was declared bankrupt, he dragged me to get a divorce forcefully. A heartless person who can't be warmed up. No, he does have a heart. After all, he always complies with Cindy's requests. He has gradually helped her rise to the position of a popular star. He just has no feelings for me. In my previous life, he never showed weakness to me. So when he said, "Can you help me to the toilet?" At that moment, I was in a daze. I even looked around. Are you sure you're talking to me? Is there a second person named Suki here? I stepped back. You can wait for the nurse to help you later. I don't want to help him. Bang. When he learned that I didn't want to help him, he chose to get out of bed by himself. But as soon as he got out of bed, he fell heavily. Suddenly, the image of him holding me and running out of the burning building flashed through my mind. I closed my eyes. Forget it. Consider it as repaying him. I don't want to owe him anything. I turned back and walked in front of him. Can't you hold it for a while? He suddenly laughed out loud. Looked up at me. And his soft forehead hair fell back, revealing his beautiful eyes. Sorry. I really can't hold it any longer. They say that sincerity is the ultimate weapon. His words left me speechless. I squatted down and wrapped his arm around my shoulder. Let's go. The way to the toilet was indeed a bit far. At this time, Sean didn't have the money to go to the gym every day to work out. But his height of 1.85 meters still pressed me. A girl of 1.6 meters. Hard. Can't you use a little bit of strength? He almost leaned all of his weight on me. The smell of disinfectant invaded my entire nasal cavity. Sorry. My leg hurts too much. I stopped in my tracks in fright. Is this still Sean? Could he have been possessed by someone else? After being discharged from the hospital, I went back to the dance studio to rehearse the dance for the competition. My phone rang when I was stretching my legs. Suki. Sean doesn't want me to get close to him. He won't let me help him. He has fallen to the ground several times. And the gauze on his back is oozing blood. I paused in my leg stretching posture. If there's a problem, call the doctor. After saying that, I hung up the phone. I looked in a bad mood in the mirror. Later, I made mistakes frequently while dancing. Even the teacher was sighing. Suki? What's wrong with you? What are you thinking about? Sometimes I really think I'm so useless. I've already died once. But I still can't help but care about Sean. My phone rang again. It was still the caregiver. I picked up the phone with a lot of impatience. I already said that if there's a problem, call the doctor. No. Suki. Sean has been sent to the emergency room. I ran several red lights on the way to the hospital by car. Because the back was oozing blood, it caused the burned area to become inflamed. Sean has been having a fever since 3 p.m. You said not to disturb you. So I didn't tell you. Now he has been pushed into the emergency room. I called you because it really looked serious. Boom. Thunder rumbled. The summer day was extremely stuffy. And I would break into a sweat with just a little movement. When I got to the door of the emergency room, my head was all sweaty. Don't worry. The patient has been saved. Just tell him not to make any more trouble. Or who knows if he'll be this lucky again. Lightning flashed across the sky. And finally, the heavy rain started to fall. The wind blew the raindrops against the window. And the water droplets formed a string and kept dripping down. I sat by Sean's bedside. His eyes were tightly closed. His already pale skin looked even paler now. I rarely saw him in such a vulnerable moment. In my previous life, before the Suki family went bankrupt, although he seemed to comply with me, his cold eyes never showed any softness towards me. I could tell that he had always been resisting me. After the bankruptcy, in order to take revenge on me, he always showed me his meanness and aggressiveness. Suki. The ward was dark as the lights weren't on. He woke up. His dark gray eyes were actually a bit soft. I hired the best caregiver in Jing City for you. The daily salary is several thousand yuan. What are you dissatisfied with? When I saw that he was awake, my anger flared up. You saved me. And I'll cover all your medical expenses. I don't owe you anything. Sean. The light in his eyes dimmed a bit. Okay. I understand. Good. Don't make trouble when the aunt comes tomorrow. No. I looked at him in disbelief. What did you say? There was no change in his expression. Still looking indifferent. I said no. I don't want anyone else to touch me. Except you. I stood up with a start. Sean. Don't push your luck. What else do you want? Do you want to move into my house? Do you want me to serve you personally every day? It's rare for someone to live as cowardly as I do. Who says I, Suki, am cold and heartless? Would a cold and heartless person let this man live in my house openly? Suki, heading for by sigh. My leg seems to hurt again. As soon as I turned on the TV, this man called out from the room. I'm even more convinced that he has been possessed. He has such a thick skin that I almost don't recognize him. I threw the remote control away in annoyance and walked into his room. He was just taking off his pants. He wasn't flustered at all and sat on the bed with an innocent look. My leg hurt so much. It's inconvenient to rub it while wearing pants. So, all the blood in my body started to boil. To be honest, no matter what period it was between Sean and me, we had a relatively strong sexual desire. My mind started to go blank. He wasn't wearing a shirt either. And a bandage was wrapped around his chest. But I don't know if the doctor's skills were very good. The bandage wasn't wrapped very tightly. His pectoral muscles were faintly visible. Of course, I pretended to be calm. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's not like I've never seen a man's body. You're just so. His face seemed to turn a bit paler. His tone also became a bit cold. Who have you seen? Are you okay? I stepped forward. Yeah. I'm just okay? He looked at me. And his gaze made me feel a little uneasy. Suddenly, he pursed his lips and smiled. And I let out a sigh of relief as well. Is that so? And it seems I still need to work harder. During these days, Sean stayed at my home like this. He was well behaved during the day. But as soon as it got dark, either this part of his body hurt or that part did. I want to take a shower. His requests even became more and more excessive. I'll stink if I don't take a shower. I refused him firmly. But he still limped into the bathroom. I followed him into the bathroom and threw away the bath towel in his hand. Don't go too far. He wasn't angry either. Instead, he just lowered his head obediently and leaned his head towards me. Smell it. It's greasy. Actually, it wasn't that greasy. And there was even a faint scent of agarwood. It immediately reminded me of the scene in my previous life when I pestered him to take a shower together. I suddenly felt a bit discouraged. Sean, you're really going too far. This is the last time. I'll wash your hair and wipe your body. After that, I'll find a nurse auntie. If you refuse again, then get out. He paused for a moment. His head was very close to my shoulder. But he didn't rest it on my shoulder. Okay. I didn't say a word throughout the whole process. I washed his hair and wiped his body, making sure that the wound didn't get wet at all. While I was drying his hair, my phone suddenly lit up. Suki, had enclosed my absorption. I'm done with my work. Can I invite you to dinner tomorrow? It was Brother Ryan. Sean also saw this message. He looked at me with a very serious expression. I gave him the hair dryer. Dry your hair yourself. Then I happily held my phone and was about to call Brother Ryan. Suki, my back hurts. I don't know if the wound opened because I bent over when washing my hair just now. His damp forehead hair fell on his forehead, partially blocking his eyes. And I couldn't see his expression clearly. If it hurts, find a doctor. I went back to my room. Brother Ryan, I'm going to participate in a dance competition tomorrow. If you're free, you can come and watch. Sure. I'll definitely go to Suki's dance competition. But I might be a bit late. Is that okay? No problem. I'll send you the ticket. Okay. After sending the ticket to Ryan. Just then, a message that the plane ticket had been successfully booked popped up. I'll go abroad after the competition. In the end, I won the first prize. Cindy won the second prize. She had a very bad expression on her face when she stood next to me to receive the award. It's really great to have money. I ignored her. At this moment, I was finally relieved. Suki, am not worthless. The accident came quickly. The chandelier on the stage suddenly fell down. I wouldn't have been hit in my original position. But suddenly someone pushed me down. And the fragments of the falling lamp pierced into my leg. It also cut my hand. I looked up. And to my surprise, the person who pushed me was Sean. And he was holding Cindy and retreating to the side. He was checking her carefully. At that moment, I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, Cindy's leg was injured by this falling chandelier. She couldn't dance for several years. It directly ruined her chance to join the city dance troupe. So my inference was right. He had also come back. And when he came back, instead of saying an apology to me, he caused me endless trouble. He played tricks on me. But for Cindy, he helped her get rid of all the dangers. Suki? Ryan appeared outside the crowd, here and over with a worried look on his face. Only then did Sean turn to look at me. His eyes were full of shock. His face instantly turned pale. Ryan supported my arm and helped me up. Does it hurt? My tears flowed down immediately. It hurts. Ryan is my neighbor brother. Before my mother had the accident, I played very well with him. Later, he left. And my mother also passed away. My personality also changed drastically. In my previous life, after I went bankrupt, after my father was sent to prison by Sean, all the debts were put on me. Sean stepped in and helped me pay off the debts. But then I became indebted to him instead. He started his revenge plan. First, he made me work as a cleaner in his company. Everyone in the company knew me. The way they looked at me as if watching a joke made my heart feel like it was being fried on a fire. But I didn't dare to make a scene. Because every time I did, Sean would starve me for 2 days. It was real hunger. After Ryan appeared, out of the friendship from our childhood, he planned to help me pay off the debts and take me away. But Sean didn't allow it. He pinned me down in the bathroom. There was ice-cold water pouring down from above. And behind me was the man's scorching body temperature. Those who do something wrong can't escape. Later, I was confined in the villa and became a docile canary. I thought that after going through so much, I couldn't cry anymore. But when facing the only person who had shown kindness to me after I went bankrupt, I still couldn't hold back my tears. He hugged me and wiped my eyes. "Don't cry. Ryan is here." Just as he was about to take me away, Sean stepped forward and grabbed my arm with a serious expression. "I'll send you off." "No. Please. No." Ryan noticed that something was wrong between us. He pushed Sean away. "Sir. I saw you holding another woman just now." Sean's face darkened, and he said coldly, "It has nothing to do with you." Ryan pulled me into his arms. "How can it have nothing to do with me? She's my Faye and Key." My leg wasn't seriously injured. The doctor simply bandaged it. Gave me some instructions to keep my diet light in the next few days and not to let the wound get wet. And then I was discharged from the hospital. Ryan took me out for a meal. "Brother Ryan. Thank you so much today." I raised my yogurt and toasted him with it instead of wine. He smiled and said, "I'm not joking. You forgot that our 2 families made a baby betrayal when we were kids." His mother and my mother were good friends. They made that betrothal as a joke. Thinking of my mother, my smile faded a bit. Ryan probably thought of it too and immediately apologized to me. "Sorry." I shook my head. "It's okay. But seriously, I heard from my uncle that you're going abroad. Do you want to come with me? My family's business has basically been moved abroad, and I can take you with me." To be honest, I was tempted. After the meal, he sent me home. "We haven't seen each other for so long. Let's have a hug." He opened his arms generously. I wasn't shy either. I hugged him back calmly. "I'm waiting for your answer. Suki." It was late at night. When I got home, only a few night lights were on. The servants in the house had all gone to bed. After I went back to my bedroom and just took off my clothes, the lights were turned off by someone. The sudden darkness made me a bit scared. Then a pair of warm hands wrapped around my waist. He pulled me over. My bare body was pressed tightly against his. Before I could even let out a cry of surprise, he kissed me with an extremely aggressive kiss, not giving me any chance to resist. He knew my body so well. He didn't go all the way. But I still went completely weak and hung on him. After I finally recovered, I slapped him across the face. "You said that those who do something wrong should be punished. In my previous life, I admitted it because the biggest mistake I made was falling in love with you. But what about this life? What have I done wrong in this life? You've actually fallen in love with me. Right? But you just won't admit it? Sean, you're so despicable." After being slapped by me, he was first silent. Then, let out a "well, sorry." After hearing what I said, he smiled. His smile was a bit terrifying. It was like a snake finally showing its fangs after being exposed. "Suki, do you know that you're pregnant?" I was completely stunned on the spot. The corners of his eyes were red, and his expression was very abnormal. "So you owe me a child. Give it back to me, and I'll let you go in this life." Only then did I realize. All my attempts to stay away from him, my compromises, and my gestures of goodwill were all in vain. I should have taken revenge on him. I should have gotten rid of him. Such a heartless man. All the anger I had accumulated in my previous life burst out at this moment. I slapped him wildly. Ahahaha. He didn't dodge either. Until the corner of his mouth oozed blood. And his fair face became red and swollen. Until my hand hurt from slapping. Then I stopped. Go to hell. Go to hell. I will never come back to you. Unless I die. Then go die. I was stunned. This was the second time. He looked at me unfairly. Die. Let's die together. My breath caught in my throat. You're crazy. Yes. I've been crazy for a long time. Sean's perspective. The most wrong thing Suki ever did was to marry me. Every time she ordered me around like a dog, I was looking forward to it. I was looking forward to the expression on her face when she found out that her family had gone bankrupt. How disgraceful she would look. At that time, I also wanted her to kneel in front of me and repent and beg for mercy. I didn't know how happy I would be. But when that day actually came, I suddenly felt like backing out. She happily hugged me. This is the first time you've invited me to watch a play. Which play is it? Is it a play starring my favorite actor? Her eyes were filled with joy. They were shining brightly. In fact, her family had fallen from grace. And her father had been reported jointly by the shareholders for malicious competition and embezzlement of public funds, and was sent to prison. And she was also burdened and with a huge debt. I finally saw her kneeling down and crying as I had wished. I thought I would be happy. But I was very annoyed. I helped her pay off all the debts, and even threw her into the Suki family company, and I took over to work as a cleaner. At that time, she still had the temper of a young lady. She almost set the company on fire. I wasn't angry either. I just starved her. After that, she never dared to do it again. But when I wanted to get close to her, she showed fear. The first time she was afraid of my touch. She dodged my gaze. My breath caught. It was as if something had grabbed my heart. It was uncomfortable. And then Ryan appeared. When she was crying in Ryan's arms, I knew. It turned out that my unhappiness was because I had fallen in love with her. It was really ridiculous. Ryan wanted to take her away. Naturally, I refused. I continued to threaten her with her father. I made her afraid to leave with him. After understanding my own feelings, I kept her by my side like a captive. Watching her wake up in my arms every day and falling asleep together, my unhappiness finally turned into joy. She seemed to gradually get used to this kind of life. And she also gradually relaxed. But why did she cry out Ryan's name in her sleep that day? I was extremely angry. So I deliberately let her see the thing between me and Cindy on TV. Yes, Heather, I did it on purpose. I just wanted her to be as sad as I was. But when she lay in a pool of blood, I realized that everything was wrong. There was no master plan. She still escaped from me. After everything was out of order, I went crazy. I started to get obsessed with some mysterious sorcery. I was willing to pay the price of never being reincarnated in the next life to have another lifetime of fate with her. But she also remembered. She didn't want me in this life. I can't let you go. Suki. It was you who started this in the first place. But I've already paid the price. I looked at him coldly. The Suki who did something wrong is already dead. I'm very grateful that you saved my life. Besides that, I have no other thoughts. I don't love you, Sean. I pushed him away. You might just be unwilling. Right? After all, didn't you also save Cindy when you came back and protected her from getting hurt? You two are quite a match. Don't miss each other in this life. His expression gradually calmed down. He stood up indifferently and walked over to pour me a glass of water. I don't like her. I just don't want to owe her. Of course. After my parents died, it was her and her mother who took me in. I didn't know you were there either. He rolled up his sleeves. And there were scratches all over them. I've already punished it for you. I suddenly realized that Sean was no longer the calm and composed Sean I used to know. He really seemed to have gone crazy. When I was about to leave the bedroom, he blocked my escape with his body, grabbed my chin with his hand and forced me to open my mouth. Then he fed the water into my mouth bit by bit. Sean. Let me go. After drinking the water, my head was dizzy and my body felt weak. He held me in his arms. Go to sleep. Everything will be fine when you wake up. When I woke up again, I was locked in a strange room. You're committing a crime, Sean. He ignored me. I lived in a daze here. My body experienced moments of pleasure, but my soul was crying. It was as if he really wanted me to give him a child in return. Sean, I hate you. And in this life, he wasn't as powerful as he was in the previous life, able to cover the sky with one hand. Finally, hadn't fulfilled my inside. When he went out one day, I finally found the opportunity to run away. But a large rear-end collision accident happened in front of the taxi I was riding in. Just a little bit. The car I was in would have been involved in the accident too. Cries and shouts resounded throughout the street. When I got out of the taxi, my heart was pounding wildly and my legs were shaking continuously. Just a little bit. I almost died again. Boy. You can't go in. The oil from the car's fuel tank has spilled all over the ground, and there's a risk of explosion. That's right. Don't go in. Why don't you listen? Following the noisy voices, I looked over. A man was being held back by a group of people. He wanted to rush into the scene of the car accident. His face was extremely pale. Don't stop me. My wife is in there. I want to save her. Don't stop me. He roared. He was almost about to fight with that group of people. I walked over and turned my head to look at him. Sean? When he heard my voice, he was stunned for a moment, as if he couldn't believe it. Slowly, he turned his head. The moment he saw it was me, he instantly knelt down on the ground. The crowd seemed to know something and scattered. I walked up and also squatted down. You. Before I could finish speaking, he hugged me, as if he wanted to crush me into his very being. Suki. Suki, hadn't so boy session. Suki. His body was trembling violently, and he buried his head in the crook of my neck. I felt a warm wetness. He was crying. Later, I had him sent to prison on the charge of illegal imprisonment. On the day he was taken in, he was very obedient and very calm. He just looked at me. Suki. Run. Run as far away as possible. Don't ever let me see you again. And he lowered his head and smiled. He took off his gold-rimmed glasses. His soft forehead hair fell down, casting a shadow that just covered his eyes, making it impossible to see his emotions clearly. But suddenly he reached out and grabbed the back of my head and kissed me fiercely. No, it shouldn't be called a kiss. It was more like a bite. Just when I was about to run out of breath, he let me go. Otherwise, I will definitely never let you go again. The end.